red lights everywhere.
Red light.
Let's give a help welcome to Randy.
I'm Randy. I'm an alcoholic. We're going to talk about step 7. Humbly asked him to remove my shortcomings. Step 7 is 7. And it's a way of life, and I'm building a character. Even if it's today, I built that character, or I'm in the relationship with this power to have the new character right now, because it's right now. And I can't jump into 7 without 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 as a way of life. I might have done 4, but I've got to be living in that rigorous self-honesty. I've got to be living in that knowing who I am of 4, and that willingness to have it removed in 6, and that having shared it with another man and God and myself in 7. And if I have that, like it said in the big book, or in Bob's book, I've swallowed some big chunks of truth about myself. That there's something that I have a disease called alcoholism, and it's created a character, and that character's now been exposed. And I can make a decision. Do I want to continue with that character, or do I want to go in the new direction? Do I want to go into the new objective, which is this God character, this God-driven being, God-centered man? And if I do, I've seen who I am. 1 through 6 was all about the disease and the willingness to have it removed. 7 is a step into new territory, a place I've never been before. Having developed a relationship with this power in 1 through 6, I'm going to go to a place that I've never been. I'm going to ask this power to help me with my shortcomings, where I fall short. See, I've always asked me to help me with my shortcomings. I've always gone to self to remove my shortcomings, but they're my shortcomings. There's a saying, a man cannot pull himself up by his own bootstraps. The most often misquoted quote ever. Because people always say you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You cannot pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the whole point. You're holding your boot down and you're trying to pull up and nothing happens. You don't go anywhere. I cannot pull myself up by my bootstraps. I cannot go and be and do something new on my own power. I can't do it. But I have a relationship with a power now. And this power has done a lot for me at this point. And there's a trusting and relying that's happening. In the 4th step, I didn't read this, but it's something that's so fantastic that I feel like it needs to be brought out now in this retreat. It says about fear. Did not myself set this ball rolling? Sometimes I think fear ought to be classified with stealing. It causes more trouble. I review my fears thoroughly. I put them on paper, even though I had no resentment in connection with them. I asked myself why I had them. Really, I asked myself why I had them. Not like a reading of a book. I have to stop and ask myself, why do I have these fears? And the book helps me a little. It says, wasn't it because self-reliance had failed me? Wasn't it? Wasn't it because everything I tried to do with self, I stepped on somebody's toes and they wanted to retaliate? Wasn't it because every time I used self-will, even when my motives were good, somebody got hurt? So I get to look at my life with that question. Is it true? If it's not true, move on. Find another organization. Get on with your life. But if it is true, then finding something other than self is going to be the most important thing I can do for my life. And these are the kind of things that motivate me to go for more because, wow, really? Yes, self-reliance has always failed me. Always failed me. Always. Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. I once had great self-confidence, but that didn't fully solve the fear problem either. When it made me cocky, it was worse. If I have a little success, if self does get some success, watch out, because now I'm the man, and I'm going to bulldoze right through you. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For I am now on a different basis, right now. I'm on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. I trust infinite God rather than my finite self. I'm in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that I do as I think He would have me and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable me to match serenity with calamity? Sorry, I got that backwards. Does He enable me to match calamity with serenity? Serenity, which is what I always wanted. When I looked at the stuff that I wanted for my life, I wanted to have the right amount of money in the bank so I could be serene about money. I wanted to have the perfect wife because if she was perfect, if she really was, then I could be at peace about women. Just have sanity about women. Just have serenity about women and about the place that if I lived in the perfect house, I could have serenity about the place that I live. Just to the extent that I rely on a higher power, does He enable me to match calamity with serenity? My life is always a calamity. Now I'm in step 7, and I get to go in a new direction for a new way of life. And I ask that power, could you remove my shortcomings so that I can be the man that you want me to be? So that I can go forward in the relationship with you. Not so that I can get favors from people or make more money at work or any other reason. It's not, this is the end of self. From 7, I'm going out now to do God's work. I'm going out for the first time in my life to be a giver. What can I add? What can I add to this experience? What can I bring to this experience? How can I be a giver? And so I sit on my couch after a hard day's work, and my wife's made dinner, and we ate the dinner, and the dishes are in the kitchen. And self wants to watch TV, and my wife asked me to do the dishes. And my mind goes, are you kidding me? If I knew I was going to have to do the dishes, I would have taken us out to dinner. I'm tired. I need to sit here and relax. I worked all day. Well, she worked all day too. So then I can ask for help for what to do. But it's already a little late then. And this way of life is a way of life where I could be in step 7 right now as a way of life, as a new character, so that I know when it's done, when it's time for me to do the dishes. And I don't have to be asked. How many times has your woman said to you, it would be so nice if you would just do the dishes once in a while, without me having to ask you? I don't know. That happened a lot in my house. Nobody even moved ahead. Everybody was just like, okay, I'm the only one. The other place that, in relationships now, I'm starting to have a relationship with another human being, a real relationship, because I'm looking and I'm asking this power, what can I bring? What can I bring to the relationship? One day I was sitting on my couch and I thought, it'd be so nice if my wife would just give me a foot rub. wouldn't that be great? I would love that. That would be fantastic. And she's sitting right over there. I kind of knew if she worked all day and she does hair and she's touching people all day and she has a thing, at the end of the day, I'm not really into touching people right now. And I have a resentment about that. I have a thing about that, because the most important person for her to touch is me. But it came to me once sitting on that couch. Something said, why don't you do for her what you'd want her to do for you? And I thought, wow, really? Why don't you do for the other person what you want them to do for you? That was a new idea to me. I think the idea has been around a little while. I think it's right now it's resonating in my head. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm a genius. But it came to me. It was a message for me when I needed it. Sitting there on the couch, and I got up and I gave her a foot rub, and I started a way of life where I'm starting to do for her what I would want for my life in advance, being a giver. And you wouldn't believe what it's like at my house now. I get everything I would ever want, and I don't have to ask for it, just like she doesn't have to ask for it anymore. There are guys here that come to my house every week, and they know. They see I have a beautiful relationship with my wife. Not because I am a great guy. I'm a terrible guy. I'm me with alcoholism. I'm incapable of having a true partnership with another human being. I promise you that. Everything that's good about this relationship is because of AA and because of principles and because of time that I spent with men who carried a message of recovery and showed me what Step 7 was all about. Step 7 isn't the second part of Step 6. Step 7 is completely different. It's funny because the 7-step prayer, so here's Step 6 in the big book. If I can answer to my satisfaction that I haven't skimped on any of the steps before, I then look at Step 6. I have emphasized willingness, or we have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Am I now ready to let God remove from me all of these things which I have admitted are objectionable? Can I now let Him take them? Can He now take them all, every one? If I still cling to something I will not let go of, I ask God to help me to be willing. When I'm ready, I say something like this. My Creator, I am now. Tommy taught me this. I read it 1,000,000 times. I never saw all the nows in it. Right now, I am now willing that you should have all of me, the good and the bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. So, that's the 6-step prayer and the 7-step prayer. The 6-step part is to remove my character defects. And the 7-step part is grant me the strength to go out from here to do your bidding. And then it says we've completed the 7th step by saying a prayer. But how can you complete something that is a way of life? You can't complete the 7th step. We have completed Step 7. Okay. Step 7 is right now. Right now in this life, in this room, what can I do? How can I be of service? Could you remove my shortcomings so that I could be the man that you want me to be? So that I could be a giver instead of a taker? How do you complete that? It's a right now thing. Right now, just like the prayer says, right now. So I'm in Step 7 forever, and I need that help right now, forever. I need that right now. I need to have a relationship with the power so that I can have my shortcomings removed. My shortcomings are all the things I don't want to do. I don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to change light bulbs. Alcoholics like to use this. Okay, I'll talk about me. I love the word try. My wife tells me, the bathroom light is out. Could you replace the light bulb? This is in the morning before she goes to work. And I say, yes, honey, I'll try. Because I'm busy too, you know. And the day goes by. And, you know, I don't write down, change the light bulb. I don't put a note anywhere. I said I'd try, which to her meant, yes, you're going to do it. And to me meant, you know, get off my back. And then at the end of the day, she comes home and it's dark and she goes in the bathroom and she flips the light on and the light's not on. And she said, I thought you said you were going to change the light bulb. And I say, no, I didn't say I was going to change it. I said I would try. And I'm mad now because I'm being attacked for not doing something that I said I was going to do, and I'm mad and I have a resentment. And there's trouble. Try. What I have learned from other alcoholics and myself is that try means no way. Try means get off my back and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. I had a guy who told me he was going to try to get a gift for his son today and get it in the mail for his birthday. And I just looked at him and said, you're not doing it. How could you try? You're a grown man. You have a car. You have money in your pocket. What part of try are you going to do? You're either going to buy the gift and send it or you're not. I'm either going to change the light bulb or I'm not. I'll try is my excuse for never doing anything. And I had to see that for my life. It was a spiritual awakening for me when that happened. Because I said I'd try everything. I wouldn't commit to anything. Humility as a way of life. Step 7 is where True, most of us thought good character was desirable. But obviously good character was something one needed to get on with the business of being self-satisfied. That's my business as an alcoholic with alcoholism, to be self-satisfied. But with a proper display of honesty and morality, I'd stand a better chance of getting what I really wanted. But whenever I had to choose between character and comfort, the character building was lost in the dust of my chase after what I thought was happiness. Seldom did I look at character building as something desirable in itself, something I would like to strive for, whether my instinctual needs were met or not. I never thought of making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the basis of daily living. So I got to ask myself, what do I think about making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the basis of daily living? As a way of life. I never thought about asking God for those things. I ask all the time, God, help me get that job. Help me get that girl. Help me get through this traffic. Help me get out of this argument. I'm always asking after. Because God is a Bush League pinch hitter. I bring him in when we're in trouble. Bases are loaded and the next batter stinks. So I bring in my pinch hitter. Okay, God, self-reliance has always failed me, and look at this mess I'm in. Can you clean it up? Clean it up. Hit me a grand slam. Make it all work out so I'm self-satisfied. But it's too late then. Because I'm already in so much trouble that it's going to take a lot of work to get back to a relationship with that power where I can have honesty, tolerance, true love of man and God. So it is that I first see humility as a necessity. But this is the barest beginning. To get completely away from my aversion to the idea of being humble, to gain a vision of humility as an avenue to true freedom of the human spirit, To be willing to work for humility as something to be desired for itself takes most of us a long, long time. A whole life geared to self-centeredness cannot be set in reverse all at once. Rebellion dogs my every step. That self is so entrenched in me that it keeps pulling me back. And it's a disease. It's not like I have a bad idea and I can just change my mind and now I'm going to have a new attitude. I have a disease. And any time I touch that disease rebels against humility. Self wants to be the power for my life. Every natural instinct in me cries out against personal powerlessness. That's why it's so hard to build this new character. Because everything in me says, no, no, no. The delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if I only manage well is so strong and so deep within me. And I get to keep seeing it. It doesn't take a long time because of time. It takes a long time because of my obsession with self. Because of my attachment to who I think I am and the story that I've told myself. The third step prayer is a lot like what the seventh step is about. I offer myself to you, God, to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self so that I can better do your will. The bondage of self is my story. The man that I think I am, this guy, and the things that I think are going to make me happy. Relieve me of all my old ideas up until this moment so that I can better do your will, not so I can better have my will. Take away my difficulties. And my difficulties are removed so that I can bear witness to others that there's a way of life that works. God's will, God's way of life, God's power, God's love. My difficulties are removed for that purpose, not for self-aggrandizement or so that I can make more money, so that I can be an example of what's possible when I put myself in God's hands. You know, recently I was telling some of the guys, I think on the way up, I used to like to buy a lottery ticket once in a while. One of the most painful events on the planet for a guy like me. Because I buy a lottery ticket, but I don't put the lottery ticket down. You know, I dabble in a little fantasy life. I dabble in what would I do with that $32 million? And I go off and I think about it. Now, I don't really expect to win. I don't know. But I go off into the neighborhood of what it would look like. You know, what my house would look like, what my new wife would look like. I explore the possibilities of $32 million. And then when I don't win it, because I haven't won it yet, when I don't win it, I get a profound sadness that I am stuck with the life that I have. And it destroys me. You know, it's like some guy asked about poker. Me buying a lottery ticket destroys me because it gets me into fantasy land about what I think life could be like if I had enough money to have the life that I really think I want, which makes me not accept and love and cherish the life that I have right now. And even though it's just a little trip into fantasy land, it ruins my life. It robs me of being here and now and enjoying what I have. And so I can't do it. And then now I had the thought, you know, I should buy a lottery ticket. And then I thought, well, what if I win the lottery? How am I going to carry a message of trusting and relying on a power greater than yourself no matter what if I have $32 million in the bank? It's going to have to come another way, maybe through work. That sucks. I balk at the prospect of actually working for a living. That's a terrible way to make money. So when I have taken a square look at some of these defects, have discussed them with another step 4, step 5, and have become willing to have them removed, my thinking about humility commences to have a wider meaning. By this time, to all probabilities, I have gained some measure of release from my more devastating handicaps. I have enjoyed moments in which there is something like real peace of mind. To me, who hitherto had known only excitement, depression, or anxiety, in other words, to all of us, me, this newfound peace is a priceless gift. Something new indeed has been added, where humility had formerly stood for a forced feeding of humble pie. It now begins to mean the nourishing ingredient which can give me serenity. All I ever wanted, all I really want is to be at peace. Right now. Right here. And this is a way of life where nothing changes and I get to have that peace. Because the power becomes my source of supply. The lottery system isn't my source of supply. My wife isn't my source of supply. You're not my source of supply. My higher power is my source of supply. In humility, I'm trusting and relying on that power to provide everything that I need. And I have a new employer, and he does provide. I've never not had everything that I need to enjoy this moment. And this moment, this is the most beautiful moment there ever was. Right here, right now. It doesn't get any better than this moment right now. I once had an experience where my wife she got stomach pains in the middle of the night. And I took her to Cedars-Sinai Hospital. I had to drop my daughter off at a friend's house at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had friends. And I could do that. And that was amazing to me, that we had another family that I could leave my daughter with in an emergency. And I thought that was amazing, that I actually had that in my life. And then we drove to the hospital, and we were in the hospital. And we're in Cedars-Sinai, and it's a beautiful hospital. And we're in the emergency room. And they're doing tests, and my wife is in pain, and I'm sitting in this chair, and it was the world's most uncomfortable chair. But I'm in Cedars-Sinai, and the doctors are coming, and they're paying attention to my wife, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. And I'm sitting in this chair, and I'm just telling her everything's going to be okay, and I'm praying, and I'm knowing that there's a power, and that power is going to make sure that the right doctors do the right thing for my wife, and she's going to have the right experience. And she's in pain. And I'm knowing that they're going to know what that pain is, and they're going to figure this out. And I'm sitting there in the emergency room for 8 hours in the cruelest chair I've ever sat in. And the thought came to me that I was totally at peace in that moment. And the next week I was supposed to go on a trip with my brothers to the Bahamas on a little private boat, my brother's boat, and spend 10 days in the Bahamas on a boat. And I'm sitting there in that terrible chair. And the thought came to me that I couldn't be any more at peace on that boat in the Bahamas. Because I had a little chat for a minute about, am I going to be able to go on that trip? Or am I going to be staying here because my wife's sick? And that thought entered my mind. And the next thought was, I couldn't be any more at peace on that boat in the Bahamas than I could at that moment sitting in the hospital with my wife, knowing that everything was being taken care of. And that was like, wow, such a profound, deep sense of humility and gratitude and a way of life that had been given to me. It's impossible that I was sitting in that terrible chair for that many hours with doctors coming and going and no answers. And my wife in pain, and I was totally and completely at peace. And everything worked out. She got better, and I went to the Bahamas. And it was true. It was true. I was in the Bahamas, and one of my brothers he's a bigger bully than I am. And by the end of the trip, he had annoyed me to the point where I couldn't speak anymore. In the Bahamas, on a boat, on a trip. At the end of that trip, he had got in my head, and there was nothing I could do to get him out. I couldn't pray him out. I had been on a boat with 2 other guys with no program, no contact with AA, I thought I had I thought I had a program and I thought I could just cruise for 10 days. Literally, cruise for 10 days on what I had built up and how great I felt when I was in the hospital, and this is going to be great and everything. And I'm connected now. And I didn't read every morning, and I didn't do my prayer and meditation. I just was experiencing nature, and I thought I was connected. And little by little, my spirituality eroded, and my brother got in my head. And at the end of the trip, I had to get out of there. Get me out of here. I can't speak. I can't talk to this guy. I can't look at him. If he says another word, I'm going to want to try and kill him. And that's the same guy. I'm the same guy. If I don't live this as a way of life, that's what happens to me. The old character creeps back in and I find fault and there's nothing I can do. So, I think that's step 7. Remove my shortcomings. Help me to be the man that you want me to be today. It's step 7, only a prayer. We did the prayer. Step 7 is not only a prayer. None of the steps are only a prayer. Prayer is part of building a new character, but prayer is half of it. Half of it is prayer, and the other half is trusting and relying that that prayer has been answered. Half of it is doing it. When I ask God to remove my shortcomings, and He says, do the dishes, and I say, I don't want to. When the power says, I think you should do the dishes, and I say, I don't want to, I'm in trouble. Because now I'm pushing this power out of my life. And I'm the one who's saying, no, I'll do the dishes when I want to. But I felt an intuitive guidance to do them when I asked, what should I do now? Do the dishes. No, it must be something different. Couldn't be the dishes. I'm way more important than dishes. I mainly give in order to get what I want. I mainly give in order to get what I want. How do I change that? How do I really know when I'm doing this? So this is compliance versus surrender. Compliance is, I'll give in and I'll do this, but I don't want to. Surrender is, wow, God, thank you for letting me wash the dishes. Isn't this great? I get to clean this dish and put it over there. Get the next dish. Clean this dish, rinse it, put it over there. It's so simple. And it doesn't have to be a painful event. Or it can be, grab this dish, drag it through the sink, make a bunch of noise, rub it and let everyone know I'm not happy about cleaning this dish, and slam it down on the counter and look at them. Why do they get to watch TV and I have to wash dishes? That, I think, is compliance. So you don't give in order to get. You already got. If you've already gotten, there's nothing to get. If I'm in the relationship with the power right now, I'm already getting. Everything that I need is being provided. There's nothing to get anymore. Now I just give. There's no giving in. There's just giving. I get to be a giver. Step 7 is where I learn to be a giver. Bob used to talk about a toothpick on the floor, and I thought, why did he talk about a toothpick, But like a piece of paper, a normal person, anybody that sees a big piece of paper in the middle of their floor, they're going to pick that up and put it in the trash. Well, most people. I would maybe step over it a few times. But a toothpick is small. It's a little thing. You could leave it in there. Somebody sees it. They don't see it. It's no big deal. But if I saw it and I don't pick it up, just because it's there, not because it's my turn to pick up toothpicks on the floor. Just because it's there. And that's how I build the new character. I live in the application of being a giver. If there's something on the floor that doesn't belong there, I pick it up. I take my dog around the block, and if I see paper in a neighbor's yard, I can pick it up. Or I can step over it. The choice is mine. And then I ask myself, who do you want to be today? You going to be the guy that steps over it? Or are you going to be the guy that picks it up? I used to work at a video place, and I would get off at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would pull up to the stop sign, and the stop sign said right turn only. And if I went right, I had to go about a half a mile out of my way to get on the freeway. But if I went left, the on-ramp was about a block away. And every night I'd get to that stop sign, and it said right turn only. And I would have to have a conversation with myself. Does that mean only for me? Does that mean only at 2 o'clock in the morning? Aren't I such a good driver that I could pull up there and look and make a left? Aren't I good enough to be able to do that? But it said only. And some days I went right, and some days I went left. Oh, thanks. When I know I'm doing it, when I know I'm really doing it, when I know I have a peace, I have a calmness in my belly, when I'm in surrender, there's no argument. There's just a doing. When I'm in compliance, there's always an argument. Holy cows. Business deal. Why I resent. Oh, this is that one. You want to? We could talk about that. Is this yours? So I can't do this right now. We'll talk about it. In my experience, is there a relationship between humility and gratitude? Of course, in my experience, when I know that who I really am, and my desire is to seek and do God's will, as a way of life, as a humility, the desire to seek and do God's will, then I am in gratitude for what I have. And when I practice gratitude, I get some humility that maybe this is the life. I had a guy, I was about 4.5 years sober. And there was a guy who went to Primetime. His name's Larry. And he taught me such an important lesson. Larry was washing dogs for a living. And I had a video production company in my house. And I had an edit bay in my house. And I paid the bills for that house. And I rented that house. And I had my business. And most of the time I was still in my head in my alcoholism. And I was semi-miserable all the time. Semi-restless, irritable, and discontented. And Larry would go out and he'd wash dogs. And he'd come back and he'd tell me about the people, these wonderful people, where he went to their house. And they would stand with him in the hot sun in his hot van, and he would have conversations, the most amazing conversations with these people while he washed their dogs. And then he would come home and he was staying on my floor. I had a futon thing on my floor. And Larry would come home and he'd sit on my floor and he'd talk about how much he loved his life and how his life was changing and how people were being attracted to him and he loved his life. And I wanted to say, F you, Larry. Don't come in here sleeping on my floor for free and talk about how much you love your life. I've worked hard all day. I pay the bills. This is my house. And you get to sleep here for free and you're talking about loving your life? I hate my life. And you're making me hate it more. It's not about what you have or what you do. It's about who I am. It's about who I am inside. That is how I act. How much gratitude I have for the day that I'm in. He loved his life. And I looked at my life and I had, from where I stood, I thought I had a much better life. But I didn't have a better life. I had a better living situation. But my life, what went on inside of me was still pretty ratty. And he showed me that I could love my life. If he could love his life, doing what he was doing and living on my floor, how come I couldn't love mine? The only difference was he was going for it and I wasn't. He was living it as a way of life and I was talking about it. What does bear witness to others mean? It means be an example. That I could be an example to others of what a life that's geared on doing God's will could look like. That's what Larry bared witness to me. Larry, that's exactly, I don't even have to talk about that. Larry bared witness to me of what's possible as a way of life in this loving relationship with a power right now. A loving, living power that's with me right now. Not later, not when I need it, not when I'm in trouble, not when the bills are due, but right now. And that's the only way I'm going to love my life. Right now. Are alcoholism, ego, and self the building blocks of character defects and shortcomings? I don't know. They're all alcoholism, ego, and self is where all my character defects are. It's where all my shortcomings are. It's all in alcoholism, ego, and self. What is fear? Fear is lack of faith. Fear is what I get anytime I leave this moment. Any time that I leave my relationship with my power, this moment right now, I'm getting into fear. All the fears of what's going to happen in the future, and all the fears of what a loser I am because of my past. And fear drives me. I'm driven by 100 forms of fear. Fear drives me to act badly and to try to get what I think I need to be okay. And fear is the thing that makes me be a taker, because I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough. Fear is the lack of faith that God really is my source of supply. That's what fear is. Because if I truly trusted and relied on a higher power, if I truly knew that God was going to give me everything that I need right in the moment that I need it, where would fear? There would be no fear. If you knew, my sponsor said it's kind of like if you had $1 million in the bank, and no matter how much you spent, the next morning you woke up, you had $1 million in your bank. That's what the life with God is like. You wake up every morning, you got $1 million in the bank. The only problem is you can't spend it on self. You got to go give that $1 million to everybody you know, and you go give it, and then you get another $1 million, and you go give it, and you have a life of being a giver. Somebody once said, "You don't get God." I just heard this recently in a meeting. You don't get God. You give God. And the more you give, the more God flows through you. And the more you have a relationship with that power. So you can't go out and get God. You got to go out and give it. You got to go out and bear witness. You got to start. I have to start living this thing, or I get to start living this thing as a way of life where I can be a giver and give God. And then I get more God and less fear. I think that's it for step 7. That might be it for step 8 too. All right. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. That one's for this one I didn't talk about. We'll just leave that one. Okay. So now I'm building this relationship, and I've got me out of the way from 1 through 6. I've taken a look at me. I've gone really in depth, and I've looked at who I am as a character and how I react and how the disease operates in me. And I've asked to have that disease removed. And now I want to go out and be a giver, and I want to become the new character, and I want to build this new character, and I want to grow spiritually. And now I got to look back at my list, and I look back at the people that I've harmed. I look back at that 4th step, and I can see that I've done harm to people. And some of them I think harmed me too. But I'm not concerned about the harm that they did me anymore, because I'm not growing spiritually for them. I'm getting to grow spiritually for me, for my life. I'm getting to build a new character so that I can live and have peace and serenity and humility as a way of life. And so now I got to look at how I harm people. And I can look back at my 4th step and I can see a list. I have a list of people that I harmed. And the 8th step talks in the 12 and 12 talks a lot about these harms. You know, there's the gross harms, the people that I stole from, the people that I stole their time or their money or their girlfriend, the places I didn't pay my bills, I just left, the car wrecks and the trashed relationships and the jobs that I didn't show up for. All the stuff that I did in my life, all the harms that I created. I get to see those. But I also get to see the harms I'm doing sober. When I'm playing favorites. And I'm choosing one guy, I'll give my attention to you, but you I don't care about. And when I'm playing my wife against my daughter in the house so I can get one of them to like me better. When I'm at work and I'm playing favorites. And I'm working hard over here, so this guy looks good, and I'm not working hard over there because I don't care about him. Or I walk into a meeting and I go up to one guy and I say hi, and I don't even talk to the other guy. The harms that I do. There's a lot of harms that I do, emotional harm, in the day that I'm in, that I can do drunk or sober. And my goal is to become closer, now I've gotten me out of the way, between me and God. Now I'm going to go to try and get you out of the way between me and God. And so I make this list of people that I've harmed, and I become entirely willing to make amends. And that might take some time. I make the list, and I look at the list, and there's going to be people on the list I don't think I can go to. They're my enemies. This is a very large order. It's a task which may be performed with increasing skill but never really finished, like all the steps. Learning how to live in the greater peace, partnership, and brotherhood with all men and women of whatever description is a moving and fascinating adventure. Every AA I have found that I can make little headway in this new adventure at living until I first backtrack and really make an accurate and unsparing survey of the human wreckage I have left in my wake. And it talks about, though in some cases I cannot make restitution at all, and in some cases action ought to be deferred, I should nevertheless make an accurate and really exhaustive survey of my past life as it has affected other people. In many instances, I shall find that though the harm done others has not been great, the emotional harm I have done myself has. Very deep, sometimes quite forgotten, damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness. At the time of these occurrences, they may have actually given me, my emotions, violent twists, which have since discolored my personality and altered my life for the worse. So this is a meaningful adventure. I mean, if I'm going to I might find some of the things, these dark twists that happened to me, that colored my whole emotion from that point forward. I found it, with my dad, with my father. How you doing? How's your business? I had a violent emotional twist sometime in my past where I thought that he was saying that I was a loser. And it colored the whole rest of my life. And when I was exposed, it changed my life. It changed my relationship with him. In step 7, we talk about being a giver. And I thought the parents' job was to give to their kids. I didn't think as a kid I had anything to do with them. They were supposed to make me feel good about myself all the time. They were supposed to give me stuff all the time. But I didn't know it was a two-way street until I was many years sober. And one day, I was 37 years old. So I was 10 years sober. And my father was coming to visit me. And something said, why don't you do something nice for your dad? And I thought, what? Isn't he supposed to do nice stuff for me? I hate that guy. But I got it. Do something nice for my dad. And I thought, what can I do for him? He was a World War II pilot. Jimmy's not here. He would have enjoyed this. He was a World War II pilot. He flew the Himalaya Mountains in a DC-3 in World War II when they didn't go that high. They just barely scraped over it. And he loved flying. He flew the rest of his life. He always had a little plane. And he was older. He was much older than me. He was 40 when I was born. So when I was 37, he was 77. He wasn't flying anymore. But I knew he wanted to ride in a DC-3. And I found a DC-3 in Paris, California. And I made arrangements, which was a whole other miracle how it all worked out. But I made arrangements for my dad to fly in that thing. And we were driving out there, and he kept asking me, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? I just took him hostage. I said, I'm not telling you anything. And we drove out to Paris, and we came around the corner, and we pulled up to the airport, and there was the most beautiful stainless steel DC-3 on the tarmac. And he just looked at me, and he said, no, you didn't. And it brings tears to my eyes because it's such a beautiful thing. I did something nice for my dad before he died. And it's the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life. And we flew on that thing, and the airport was a dirt strip, just like in India where he was flying. It was it was unbelievable. It was a miracle experience. But something said, why don't you do something nice for your dad? And I listened, and I did it. And I got to have that experience with my dad and healed all of it through that experience of being a giver. That's what's being offered here. That's the way of life. That's what's being offered. And I couldn't produce that. There's no way. There's no way the events came to pass the way they did, that it even happened. It was impossible. While the purpose of making restitution to others is paramount, it's equally necessary that I exercise from an examination of my personal relations every bit of information about myself and my fundamental difficulties that I can. Since defective relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of my woes, including alcoholism, no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. I'm living that. Nothing. There's no reward better than what I got from this. Calm, thoughtful reflection upon personal relations can deepen my insight. I can go far beyond those things which were superficially wrong with me, to see those flaws which were basic, flaws which sometimes were responsible for the whole pattern of my life. Thoroughness, I have found, will pay, and will pay handsomely. It's just a list, right? Come on, this is the 8th step. You just make a list of people you've harmed, and then you go out and tell them you're sorry, right? That's what I thought it was. But there's something so deep going on here. There's something being offered. If I go, as a way of life, as a character that I've built with the first 7 steps, step 8 is so deep. It's usually glossed over. It's talked about like, you make a list and you become willing. You make a list and you become. But there's so much that happens for my life if I go deep. If I really search, if I really build the character up to 7, if I try to do 8 on its own, without the character that now wants to go out and have the shortcomings removed and be living in this giving way, then it's just a list. But if I have that, now there's something deep going on, a healing that's going to happen for me and the people that I'm going to go out to. So, whenever my pencil falters, I can fortify and cheer myself by remembering what AA experience in this step has meant to others. It is the beginning of the end of isolation from my fellows and from God. You see, I'm isolated from my fellows because I have all this stuff that I did that I'm ashamed of, that I feel terrible about, that again, even step 8, it's not a resentment now. Now it's shame and guilt of all the harm that I've done and am doing, sober. that brings me back to alcoholism. So I'm going deeper in cutting out the things that take me back to my character defects, that take me back to my alcoholism. So this list, it isn't to go make restitutions for the other people. I'm going out to make restitutions so that I can get rid of the guilt and the shame and the regrets and the remorse and the self-loathing for the character that I'd been up until this point of doing step 8. And that's what this list is about. And it's much easier to go to my enemy when I'm going to my enemy because there's something, because it's going to clear me out. I'm not going to my enemy to make him whole. I am, but it's much deeper than that. And so that's step 8. Right? Is it time-wise? Okay.
Any other questions? Step 8? Oh, they're coming from a long way away. Bring it in here, man.
What have you done? What have you done to make amends to people I have harmed that have passed away? The people that have passed away don't really need my amends. They don't need it. I'm the one that needs it. In a way of life connected with this power, I ask that power, what can I do? What can I do? And there's some amends and there's some people that I can't find or people that I can't make amends to. And there's a lot of women that I mistreated that I don't even know who they are. They just passed through. But I can make amends to those women by being kind and generous and loving and tolerant of women that I do come in contact with today. And I can build this new character as a way of life and go out into the world to be a giver and make living amends for all the stuff that I've done. The making amends is not for the other person, it's for me. And I can share with my sponsor, ask for some guidance, and then do what I'm intuitively guided to do to make those amends. I don't think there's one way to do that. Can I be willing to make an amend for a behavior that I still occasionally do? Look, you're not going to be rendered white as snow. I'm not always right in my house. I don't always do the dishes when it's time to do the dishes. I often have to call Tommy and say, Tommy, I did it again. I need to talk to you. I'm in it, and I can't even get out of it because I can't do this alone. And Tommy tells me everything's going to be okay and that there's a power, and he reminds me and brings me back to what needs to be done. And I get to start the way of life over again. You see, I can't jump back in at step 8 because step 8 needs step 7, and step 7 needs step 6, and 6 needs 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. And unless I have that spirit of complete defeat, I'm not going to be willing to make amends. I'm not going to be willing. I'm going to be unwilling. I'm going to be blaming, and I'm going to be fault-finding, and I'm going to be full of my character defects. They're not removed permanently. They're just over there, and I'm turning over here. Anytime I want, I can go over there and pick them up. And I don't even do it because I want to. Most of the time, the disease, which has been described as cunning, baffling, and powerful, it sneaks back in trying to be helpful to others. Sometimes my helpfulness has an element of teaching a lesson or proving my point. And I don't even know. I think I'm being helpful. I think I'm being kind. I thought that I did the right thing on Monday night when I got up before the group and I said, could you please not smoke the e-cigarettes in the room? I thought I was being helpful to the people that were being bothered by the smoke. I didn't consider the people that were smoking, that need to smoke those things. They didn't even enter my mind because I'm not smoking them. So it never crossed my mind that those people might be hurt. I thought it was no big deal. But it was a big deal to a guy that was smoking it. But I didn't consider it. And then I'm hurt. Why are you attacking me? I was doing the right thing. I thought my motives were good. My motives were to help the people in the room that were suffering from the fog. But my motives weren't good for everybody. They were good for me and the other people that weren't smoking, maybe. And so the disease sticks. And then now I'm right. I'm right. It is annoying. Other people will agree with me. I can band a whole group together to say, yes, we don't like it. But that doesn't mean it's not right. It just means that I have a group of people that agree with me. There might be another way to look at it. There might be another solution. I got to be open to that. And so I get in trouble as recently as Monday night. and people turn on me. I step on the toes of others and they retaliate. And I'm going, what? Why would you do that? Can I actually make that amend if I still occasionally do the behavior I'm making amends for? Look, making amends, this sounds like saying I'm sorry. Making amends is not saying I'm sorry. We're going to talk about making amends in step 9, because that's where I make the amends. But I thought making amends was, I'm sorry. I acted badly and I'm sorry. And I've said that my whole life. I've said it drunk and sober. I've always said I'm sorry. With no intention of building a new character or going in another direction. I'm sorry. I stepped on your toes. I'm sorry. And then I step on your toes again because I'm not paying attention and I'm always in a hurry. And I'm the king anyway and your toes are in my space. And so, because I have that attitude and I keep doing that behavior, I have to keep saying I'm sorry. And after, the third or fourth time, it's like, really? Really? You're sorry again? Really? Yeah, I'm an alcoholic and I'm sorry. That's not an amends. An amends is making it better. You want me to rub your foot? Wow. That's crazy. I'm not doing that. These are still step 8. I have resentments against a couple of nations. How do I make amends to nations I'm resentful against? I don't have to make amends for resentments. I have to make amends for harm that I've done them. So if you've been over in that nation and you've done some bad things there, you might need to go back there and see what you can do to help make their lives better, that nation better. It's not about making amends because I had a resentment. Some resentments might not have harms associated with them. I want to make amends to an ex-girlfriend. What do I need to look at to make sure my motives are pure? Not just an excuse to see her. Yeah, how many guys? Alcoholics, man, I'll take... I want to make amends to my ex, but I don't want to make things better for her life. I want to make things better for my life. I'm going there to get, not to give. That's not making amends. That's pleasing self. How many times a guy has said, I'm going to take her out to dinner because I hurt her so bad. And then they spend the night. And then they have to make another amends because they want to keep it an ex. They just wanted to have a little ex fun. Is it wrong to make amends because I feel bad about something even though I have not harmed someone? Is it wrong to make amends even though I haven't harmed them? I don't know. Making amends is making it right. It's not saying I'm sorry. So if you go to somebody as a giver and you want to give to them because you want to give to them, there's nothing wrong with being a giver. You can't go wrong making someone's life better. That's the character that I'm building. is the character in step 7, which is going out to have my shortcomings removed, so that if you're in my life, I want to see what I can add, not what I can take. So if you have a person in your life that you had a resentment against at some point and you want to make their life better, make it better. I don't think saying I'm sorry for some stuff I did in the past makes it better. It's just saying I'm sorry. It's like saying, will you forgive me without me doing anything? Because I'm sorry what I did. And the other person has to do the action of the forgiving. Maybe there's some forgiveness in step 8. Maybe if you haven't really harmed them, but you still have a resentment, maybe you could start forgiving them and stop judging them and start loving them as a way of life. All right, step 8's over. Oh, we're going to stop the tapes for a second.